Um, do not believe any propaganda because they tell you lies here. And now these are words that appear. These are words that appeared on a sign that was held by a brave employee who was one of the Russia's major state television networks during a live broadcast Monday in their protest of Russia's attack on Ukraine. The protester Marina Obstinnikova was detained. It's a stunning contrast to that piece of shit Tucker Carlson's faux segment, where he has amplified the Kremlin's lies in support of its barbaric war against Ukraine. Sorry. Sorry about that. Sorry. Now, a Republican strategist, Anna Navarro, um, I don't really care for her anyway, but she used to co-host The View, and she was co-hosting The View on Monday, and she suggested that the Department of Justice should investigate whether that piece of shit Carlson is a foreign asset who was basically shelling out for Putin. We can debate this whether he is or not, but one thing is clear: Carlson is not on the side of democracy. um, and this is not rocket science. So basically, we all understand that the Russian leader Vladimir Putin's goal is to end the fledgling democracy of Ukraine, and he plans on installing a pro-Putin figurehead to do his bidding. Now, in fact, we have already seen an example of this in the Melitopol, which is a city in southeastern Ukraine. The Russian forces arrested the duly elected mayor Ivan Fedorov on Friday, and they installed a new mayor. Now, yet in the weeks before Putin launched his brutal attack on the Ukrainian people, there was the piece of shit Tucker Carlson using his highly rated faux show to peddle anti-Ukrainian and pro-Putin propaganda, as documented by the media watchdog organization Media Matters. Now, just to give you a few examples here, which included the fucking piece of shit Tucker Carlson telling his audience, is as Putin was amassing troops on the Ukrainian border, the democratically elected leader Vladimir Zelensky was actually a dictator, which he's not. And then days later, he smeared Zelensky as an obedient puppet of the Biden State Department, which he's not. The piece of shit Carlson also claimed, again, that in an apparent attempt to dissuade his viewers from caring about the people of Ukraine, he basically told them that Ukraine was not a democracy. The last point echoed one made by Putin himself days before he launched his attack as a way to justify it. Um, Now, the piece of shit Tucker Carlson also defended Putin numerous times in a show in the days leading up to the war with the sarcastic comments like anything less than hatred for Putin is treason. Carlson even invoked typical conservatard issues, the culture issues, basically like the war ones, in his quest to defend the Russian leader by posing to his viewers questions about Putin, such as: Is he teaching my children to embrace racial discrimination? Is he trying to snuff out Christianity? Before Putin launched his attack in the early morning of February 24th, the piece of shit Carlson's comments were alarming, and given the massive Russian troop buildup on the Ukrainian border, and since Putin's forces began his brutal attack upon the people of Ukraine, engaging in what many have rightfully dubbed war crimes, the piece of shit Carlson's continued peddling the Kremlin propaganda makes it clear which side he sits on, and he basically sits on the side of a brutal leader over a democratic nation literally facing extermination. Now, the worst example came last week when the piece of shit Carlson used his show to peddle, as the New York Times fact checkers framed it, a baseless theory that was promoted by Russian state media, and that the United States had been funding laboratories in Ukraine that developed biological weapons. Now, this is a jaw dropper. There was the piece of shit Carlson on Foe. He used the baseless claim that the Pentagon is lying about biolabs in Ukraine, while at the same time telling viewers that he had been dubbed by experts as Russian disinformation, was in reality totally and completely true. It was like Orwellian TV, or more accurately, Russian state TV. The piece of shit Carlson made his case by mischaracterizing, distorting, and cherry-picking statements from an interview of Robert Pope, who's a director of the Pentagon's Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, and the recent testimony of the Victoria Nuland, who's the Undersecretary of State. The New York Times found that in the end, the piece of shit Carlson's buffet of lies also earned him 4 Pinocchios from the Washington Post fact checkers. And why would Carlson spill these lies? The piece of shit Carlson spill these lies? Maybe it's because the piece of shit Carlson's documented affinity for strong men like Hungary's Viktor Orban, or his seeming desire to display extremist views from his maggot audience. But there's no disputing this in the same misinformation that he had been pushed by Putin's regime days earlier to help defend its slaughter of the Ukrainian people. And the piece of shit Carlson wasn't dumb. Now, shockingly, on his show on Friday, the piece of shit Carlson even slammed the U.S. government for targeting with the economic sanctions that the Russian oligarchs who, part of the Biden administration, were known to direct, authorize, fund, significantly support, and destabilize Russia's foreign policy. But in the piece of shit Carlson's view, it's wrong to sanction these oligarchs by seizing the property of people without bothering to explain exactly what crime they had committed. Now, with that backdrop, it comes as a zero surprise that on Sunday, Mother Jones reported that they obtained a leaked memo of media outlets directing them to feature more clips of the piece of shit Carlson on the airwaves. Now, the memo was dated back March 3rd, and it states it is essential to use as much as possible possible fragments of broadcasts of the popular foe host, the piece of shit Tucker Carlson, as they cited how he sharply criticizes the actions of the United States and NATO. And they also urged airing clips of the piece of shit Carlson, countering the attacks directed towards President Putin personally. Think about this for a moment. We are seeing a well-known American television host spewing Kremlin-manufactured propaganda defending Putin, as well as his oligarchs who are smearing Ukraine with lies. Now, whose side is the piece of shit Tucker Carlson really on? And it's not America, we can tell you that. So, but if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon account, which you can find in the About section of my YouTube channel, and you can support the work even further. So.